experience. Moyen and Renman, who are sort of newcomers, but grinders, and Hatul come from the Challenger circuit, Raven.
Yeah, I don't really know how to describe Hatul, to be honest, after that interview.
Meme that was all over the place when he was having a good run when we were casting HCT Korea. All sorts of signs in the crowd. Whereas Akumaker is a player that you might have known as Joan over the years, as he's flipped his name back and forth, but he's one of the ANZ region's most consistent and most well-known players.
Yeah, and what do you make of these lists as well? So, Togwaggle Druid banned versus Steelo's aggressive lineup. What's the thought of banning Togwaggle versus Q-Block, Combo Shudderwalk, and Quest Rogue?
Against the aggro that he has, because Aku's actually got kind of a bad matchup here, just archetypes-wise. He's playing kind of greedy anti-control lists, and he's run into aggro. And, you know...
Shock.
Right. as greedy as you can make your Druid deck, which Mallywaggle is as greedy as you can make your Druid deck, you still just have the fantastic anti-aggro Druid cards in there. Whereas, you know, Quest Rogue, a bit more vulnerable, and if Q-Block just doesn't hit that Dream Void Lord curve, then you find yourself in trouble as well.
Yeah, but let's kick it off. Akumaker on that Warlock and Steelo kicking off the Rogue. Pretty decent start with his choice of 1-drops, and you can see there he has, you know, he's gone for the Daimon versus the Firefly, just the generic stronger minion on one. And he's got a pretty good follow-up as well. Henchclan third. Now he's got the Valspine Slayer as well. It's looking okay for now.
He is indeed, and Aku only just pulls his Spellstone into hand and is not able to upgrade it with any Kobold Librarians or such just yet, so this Henchclan Thug is going to start pounding away, but Aku does have a very, very fast hand here with Skull, Doomguard, and Possessed Lackey all ready to go. And that Doomguard draw is actually pretty nice because he wants that Possessed Lackey to be nailing a Void Lord for him when it comes down later on, so thinning the deck, TJ, by one Doomguard is actually a very big deal for him.
Yeah, I wonder now, like, what order do you actually go for these tools that you have in your hand as Akumaker? Because he could coin the weapon out, for example, and go hard on being able to play a Doomguard and something else as a follow-up. But is that too much of a window for Steelo to just kill him?
Yes.
It's a tough call.
That feels like he's quite dead if he goes with that line. If he coins Skull, does nothing this turn, he can take 8 minimum next turn. He's down to 11, and then he gets his Doomguard to clear a minion, but suddenly, like, any kind of cold blood play on the follow-up from Steelo after that seems like he's probably just facing down lethal over the course of 2 turns. So he may just be forced to take some damage off the board this turn with Spellbreaker and try and contest. Looks like what he's going to go for, and then just keep that coin hanging around, because still Possessed Lackey coin, Dark Pact, sorry, completely blanked on the name of the card there for a second.
Good start, friend.
Yeah, coin Dark Pact can still just be game winning from this position.
Yeah, this was my point about the weapon as well. Sometimes, although it doesn't look great there, you do have to make that tough call, right? Because you look at this, it's like, well, there's still 4 power on the board, 6 with the weapon.
Yeah.
And you've just left a plain 4-3 there. It's like, well, if Cold Blood comes out, the 4-3 doesn't do as much, especially with the help of this deck hand. It means it can be removed. So sometimes you do have to make those brave plays and kind of just hold on tight and hope it's enough.
Right.
But, you know, I do agree that it's a little bit more difficult in this instance. I think he does have the Spellstone to clear off the Henchclan if it does survive or get cold-blooded, so that does help. But either way, I think Akumaker's in a bit of a rough spot now.
Yeah, he's just got 1 or 2 turns where he needs to scramble just to find some security, and then he can start doing more powerful things. If he can survive, for example, till 7 mana with coin still in hand, then Possessed Lackey Defile can be huge if he's able to find a setup for that with perhaps interacting with a Giggling Inventor to activate that 1.
It's not often, as the Rogue, you can realistically play around it either. It's actually quite hard, because if you've got a minion on board that's 1 health, well, you can't really kill it off yourself, and Akumaker won't really have any minions himself either, so it's a bit of a tough one.
It feels a little bit weird from Steelo there to trade into the Spellbreaker. As the aggro deck, you're just throwing so much damage away to a minion that you've just completely neutralized with the Noatrons. But actually, I think it's necessary to play around Defile in that position, because otherwise it knocks off one of the Divine Shields, and there's 1, 2, 3 in play for a full board player. Whereas now, with the 4-3 taken off the board, Defile is a lot less powerful.
Yeah, and this is what I mean earlier, where, like, well, Steelo can't do anything about the 2-1 from the Giggling Inventor. There's nothing he can do to get rid of it, right? So that's always live for some kind of Defile, but he did what he had to do to just stop it getting out of hand. And now he does have the 2-1 drops with 2 Valspines. That is might not look like the most aggressive hand, but it kind of in a roundabout way is, because you can just say, nope, this minion doesn't count anymore.
Still doesn't do a great deal against the Void Lord, though, if that's going to be the answer.
Oof.
And Aku goes for the most defensive play available there. Coin Spellstone on a Divine Shield, which is so very wasteful, and then Defiles afterwards. He had the opportunity, and I'm sure he was considering this, to just throw out his Possessed Lackey and just bet the game on that. Coin Possessed Lackey, take the risk, A, that you just die to damage from hand, and then B, the risk that you get one of the Void Lords coming out afterwards. Because if you don't, you're very dead in that scenario.
And that was similar to the weapon conversation earlier, but I did wonder, because he could have defiled and then still just spellstoned the hench clan and get the heal.
Yes. And we're left 2 1/2s on board, which you can still like get Fungal Mancer.
Right, that's it, isn't it? Like, I was thinking, like, is that just worth? Because their next attack is dealt with by the heal from the spellstone, so then you buy time in a certain way. But the second fungal drops, you've gone, well, okay, I lose at that point. So yeah, that was the one thing that sticks out as a problem. But in general, I feel like not getting health from your spellstone in this matchup is the most horrible experience ever.
Actually, if you rewind a couple of turns and like put yourself in Aku's shoes where he can't see the hand, there was a turn where there were 2 minions in play. Steelo had 5 mana, and he took a very, very long time to just play Giggling Inventor. So as Akumaker, that could potentially give you a read that one of those cards is Fungal Mancer, because that you could convince yourself that was the debate that Steelo was having, right? Fungal or Giggling in that spot.
And now, these are the turns where Akumaker is holding on tight and hoping it's enough, because he hasn't got much health to play with, and we can see though Steelo doesn't really have... Still not got any aggressive stuff. I said the Valspines were great, but not when there's nothing to kill. So the Diamol, very, very weak overall. And Akumaker could just play Spirit single-plated Beetle here.
Does that win the game, though?
Well,
same spot next turn, right?
Right, but if Umbra is left alive, he just plays the Lackey.
Sure.
50-50.
Yeah, but you're not leaving Umbra alive, right? If you can't kill your opponent, there's no way you're leaving that Umbra alive.
Right, so then if Umbra's not left up, something's traded in, which buys you additional draw, additional turn, maybe gets Dark Pact.
Sure.
I think everything else looks worse to me.
Almost out of time.
I guess you choose Lackey now, cross fingers, but your opponent's got 3 cards in hand. That's what scares me. And he did use, still used all his mana earlier, so it's not like he's floating tons because he's got back.
He used all his money. He used all his mana on a Valspine. Right? Like, it wasn't exactly powerful. This is the play that I was leaning towards. It was the play that I was potentially leaning towards last turn as well. I feel like this hand isn't going anywhere, right? And if you play like a weak, like Beetle turn as Aku, like, yeah, you gain some health. Yeah, you don't die almost certainly. But Steelo still develops. He still takes the board. He still puts pressure on. And then it passes back to Aku with 7 mana. And how has his position improved? Just hasn't, right? He's just staring.
You rip a Dark Pact off the top and then, haha!
Sure. But if you're going to make that bet either way, right, you can just take the bet now on there being a Void Lord inside this Possessed Lackey.
Yeah. To me, it's a very close one. To me personally, at least. I think I would have gone for Plated Beetle and Umbra, because it feels like putting 2 minions on the board with a significant amount of health, actually. I'm gaining 3 armor, effectively gaining 6 armor if he kills it, or if I trade it off the turn after. Like, that is a large number to go for, and Steelo's going for the kill. There's the Void Lord. He can Valspine, but that is still 3 1/3s in the way.
Yep. There you go. This could be the game-winning play now for Aku, because, yeah, Valspine Slayer Void Lord interaction is not really where you want to be as the aggro rogue, because now Aku has so much ability to take control of this board state.
Okay.
Defile is definitely an option now. If he wants to just reset and start again, Aku's very able to do that. He can get uncontested Umbra down on the board.
Or he could just play the weapon to get a free Doom card next turn.
Also true.
Because then we talk a lot, almost 100% of our discussion. Well, not 100, because we talk about random stuff sometimes. But we talk about the cards in hand, excuse me. But the second you play the weapon, Steelo has to consider that Void Lord's coming out of that weapon.
Yeah.
That there's just a certain like mental fear that happens at that point. I know you can't do much about it.
Right, as the odd rogue, is that ever even worth thinking about, right? Because I don't think you're dealing with a free Void Lord ever with this deck. I do wonder, like, Aku's now in a pretty responsible position where he can maybe, like, he knows his opponent's 1 card is a flame elemental, so I think he can even just start planning around, like, Leroy top deck here and just make a play that doesn't die to the Leroy top deck. and just move forward from there.
Stack the armor.
Yep.
I like getting the cube down because it's a beefy minion that can actually get something done. And start killing off these Vile Spines. SI definitely not bad there actually. Allows him to push a significant amount of damage.
Yeah. Now at this point, it really feels like kind of Myra's unstable element or bust for Steelo.
I think Leroy is still good, right?
There's no healing this turn, yeah.
He can't proc the beetles, right?
Right.
Even if he Dark Pact, you'd have to like Dark Pact Hellfire, which, well, you lose into that anyway, so whatever at this point. That's pretty low. He's going to clear up the board and get those beetles live as well. Preemptively sets up a Defile with the beetles.
Well, that's not the one. The Leroy top deck was there. Only 9 mana as well, so Myra's into Leroy wouldn't have been a potential out. But Baku seems very, very unlikely to get there now at this point. It's traded down on board even.
Well, now it almost has to be Baku this turn into either Leroy or Myra's Leroy.
I mean, there's two Beetles on the board.
Yeah,
like Leroy's not even going to get there. It just has to be Myra's for like one last huge push.
The trade happens, right? And then one more turn and hello, Mr. Gul'dan.
I wonder.
Would you say this is how the matchup often plays out, or do you think Odd Rogue normally gets the job done?
I think Odd Rogue is pretty decent in this matchup, honestly. The draw where you get an early Void Lord as Cube Lock is pretty rare. And the draw where Steelo just draws 0 damage the entire game.
What was it, like 2 1-drops in a row?
Right.
I think you drew?
Yeah, no Cold Bloods, no Leroy, you know, only one of the bigger mid-range threats in like Hench Clan Thug that came out. So yeah, I think normally this matchup goes a little bit further towards the Odd Rogue. So.
Yeah, I think the big deal for me as well is no fungal.
This is smart, by the way. Steelo's found himself an out and just saying, hey, you now need a way to kill your own beetles and still have my Leroy draw to kill you.
Yep.
But Aku does.
Look, I like watching Aku. He's like, wait, was Defile correct? It's like, well, as long as you don't die next turn, most plays are correct.
Yeah. Aku's a very intense individual. I hung out with him a little bit in the Sydney tour stop, and he is a very thoughtful person, but I also think it's very important for him to be perceived as a thoughtful person. So he's on camera. He has to look like he's thinking all the time.
You think he thinks that?
I think that.
You think that he thinks that?
Right.
He should think that, maybe.
Right. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Nailed it.
It is a weird thing. Like I have played Hearthstone in a tournament on camera before, and it's a weird thing to describe being on camera. I imagine some players don't care, right? Just like you, for example, probably couldn't care less, right? If when you play on camera or not, because you're on camera. I'm saying.
I actually got. So I was never nervous competing in fighting games, but I was actually more nervous competing in Hearthstone.
Right. As Akumaker takes the win, we was kind of rounded up anyway because he did manage to get the beetles off, but it is something I've considered before because I've done it and it made me conscious as to how I moved, what my reactions were.
Sure.
Because I know people are watching my face right now. You know, it sounds really weird, and I sit on camera for a job.
Well, for his tournament chances as a whole, because the full aggro strategy is basically where a majority of the field are operating.
It is, and as we move on to game number 2 now, Steelo going in on the Druid. Steelo has the newer version of Token Druid, and even, I would say, the newest version with only 1 Strong Shell Scavenger. There's the 1 Saronite, there's Forbidden's Floop, of course, 1 Power of the Wild as well. So he is including what I believe is the newest iteration where you dropped 1 Strong Shell, because you used to run 2, and put in a Scenarios, which is something I've seen quite a lot for just 1 extra late game punch.
Yes. I think it's very important with this deck that the new expansion, the cards that you're adding in are kind of things that give you more armies in a can, which is a phrase I first heard Zalay using. Just basically a card that you can drop that threatens lethal. That's basically what you're looking for, right? Because Giggling Inventor, you play it, it threatens lethal a lot of the time. Because if you jam 3 buffs on top of that and hit face with all of them, it's ludicrous damage. Scenarios is that same thing, which is why it's in the deck. Then suddenly when you're including Giggling Inventor, Strong Shell Scavenger is another army in a can, so it can make weak minions into strong minions. There's even other options like Tending Torrent that just aren't being played that can have a similar effect, just like a very mini Scenarios. So I think that was Token Druid's big weakness, just a lack of total boards that it was able to develop.
Yeah.
And the addition of Giggling Inventor and a few of those other cards has really helped out.
It's definitely evolved from Whispering Woods, Soul of the Forest,
Yep.
Cross Fingers.
Can you kill this? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. The more I've played this version, especially, the more I've just fallen in love with this deck because the deck's almost split into two halves, right? There's the armies in a can, so to speak, and the buffs that just kill your opponent, right? And there's a tiny bit of removal, but okay. And that makes your deck so consistent at doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's such a great deck, I would say, for even newer players to start, because although there are some high-level complications you can do with this deck, at a base level, make stuff, if your opponent doesn't kill it, you win.
Yes.
You know, that is very easy. And I love Libidinous Flute in this deck. I hate it in the Malagos Druids and stuff like that because you just die. But in this
Oh,
deck,
I see. You acknowledge that it's powerful in that.
oh, yes. But in this deck, you have so many options. Do you want another Giggling?
Yeah.
Do you want another Tyrant?
Yeah.
Do you want another Strong Shell
Shell,
to
yeah.
buff? You know,
you want another
now do you want another
Scenarios?
Scenarios? Yeah. It's like everything. There's potential for every minion you play, another Sirenite, to be used as Forbiddeness. And it's so cool. And I feel like the players who make that card work the best are going to have a decent win rate advantage.
Yeah, it's again a thing that I saw a couple of players saying in card reviews when Floop was revealed is like, guys, don't overthink this. Chain Gang coin Chain Gang into this is just insane on its own before any nonsense Mali combos. But I haven't really talked much about this particular matchup. Quest Rogue versus the Token Druid, and this is why I felt okay in the end picking Sequinox as my one to watch, because he does have Quest Rogue in what is otherwise quite an anti-aggro lineup. But when you look at the field, there's just a lot of Token Druids and a lot of Odd Paladins hanging around, which means a great deal of the time, with the Fan of Knives build of Quest Rogue, you are able to just squeak a win through when you need to.
And do you think this hand gets there at the moment for Aku? He is going to go for the Sonya double deckhand play here to start getting the quest going pretty early.
Yep.
But with no Shadow Step, the Sonya is you've got to imagine. Maybe you don't have to imagine. Like, is this quite hard to actually get rid of?
Exactly. It's a very disruptive turn.
I sort of just changed my mind mid-sentence.
It's a play where you play the Sonya. You saw one Spellstone get used early just to kill a Wax Elemental, by the way, which is kind of a talking point that we completely brushed past and we'll just kind of have to leave in the dust for now. But even if you do play Sonya here and Steelo has to kill it, you're making him kill it on his 8-mana turn, which is huge for you because it's a turn where Steelo wants to do something very much resembling this. And Steelo's just basically had no option but just to go ahead and do that and just let this Sonya run wild.
Yeah, and Steelo knows this will happen. He knows the deckhand is in the hand. Like, it's there. You know, there was no question. Steelo's not surprised by this play. But it's also quite hard to kill that turn. Like, the second Spellstone and swipe. Yep.
Savage
Savage Draw, sorry.
Smack it with your
Yes,
face.
Savage Draw. And that's a win to me if you play a Savage Draw to kill a single Sonya. So yeah, that was actually a very good turn back, and then I swiftly changed my mind on how good that Sonya was.
Agreed. The prep in hand for Aku is making his counterpunch just a little bit stronger than it had to be as well. And now Aku can trade a large amount of these bodies off the board. That's what's important. You're not going to see him just pop open all the 1/1s here. You're going to see him take total bodies off the board.
And then he didn't. He could just die next turn. And it sounds silly, but it can happen.
Oh, it happens. Now Scenarios into Floop is a possibility, though. Steelo does have that Spreading Plague to stall as well, and can finally now deal with that that Sonya on board. Smartly trades one first, it doesn't change the breakpoints, and this way he gets the additional buff on that trade.
Ooh. Spreading Plague into Scenarios. Now that is a combo with Mr. Floop.
Yep.
Oh, I love it. Such a cool card. Just nightmare. But now, this quest seems to have happened too fast, in my opinion. You don't expect it when you should be pressured by this token deck.
I don't think Aku is out of the woods yet, though. because this is an incredibly hard counterpunch that Steelo can come up with here with the Spreading Plague turn if and when he chooses to activate it. And Aku's hand just running a little bit dry right now. Of course, his cards cycle. That's, you know, the great power of Fan of Knives and why it's able to be supported in this deck, that even when it does just sit a little bit dead and doesn't do anything, you're still just able to cycle it out relatively cheaply.
And there is a note now as well that current iterations of Quest Rogue don't function like the older versions, where you don't die from 25 that often. Well, one, because the 4s make it more difficult to die from 25, but also as well, like, there's no double bore, for example, in the list. Deck hands have been used to proc the quest. So a lot of it is, I've got the board and you cannot get it off me. That's normally how the deck plays nowadays. So it means that Steelo, you know, as you said, isn't really just gone and dead yet. He's still on a healthy life total, and as you said, still has that Spreading Plague to defend for quite a while, actually. Also important to know that the Spreading Plague scenario does set up for a 3-attack Plague, but then swipe is a card. So, you know, there is tools in Steelo's deck that deal that 1 damage to just wipe a lot of the board.
Yeah, also more importantly, it buffs the health on the Treants, because the 4 attacks plus a Fan of Knives, which is pretty much ever present in Quest Rogue in tournament lineups now anyway, is just such a clean way to be able to get through Spreading Plague if you don't buff them up like that.
Was that just pod into pod?
He did. Not really what he was looking for. Yeah, that's too expensive.
It's a lot of cards.
It is a lot of cards. It's a lot of value.
You start adding turns to the game now, right?
What Aku wanted to do that turn ideally was just to mimic pod into a 1-drop or something.
Glacial Shard.
Right.
Yeah.
Explode onto the board and just set up guaranteed lethal for the following turn.
Magic Glacial Scenarios, Glacial Face. What can you actually do now? Bang, you're dead. You know?
UI will take Steelo up to 20 here, leaving 5 on the board with the dagger, and there's only currently 2 charging.
I also feel like it would take him up to 20 cards in hand.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, you know, he kind of has the tools that he needs to win the game, right? I don't think overdrawing is a massive concern. Well, it's just a matter of whether UI is the most powerful.
In that way, yeah, I was going to say, Malfurion just feels way better, right? Just Malfurion, you can armor up with the hero power. Then you have 2 1/5s that, if cleared, well, you just Plague buff anyway. Yeah. If not cleared, well, buff or something anyway. You know, you can actually then go for, say, Whispering Wood scenarios instead. So I think, as often, Malfurion is the best play when you can have it in hand and it's playable. Steelo appears to agree with the opposite.
Time goes short.
I hope it's counted lethal damage, because that rope's burning. Now week 2.
Now how about...
Weekend 2 of these.
Oh, I wonder what you were talking
joke.
about there. Yeah, dumb Rusty meme.
Circle of life.
How long will they go on? Find out. You've got to tune into every Hearthstone tournament. I do like this though. You gain the armor, you're relatively safe.
Yeah. It
just ticks all the boxes you want.
Deckhand, Boar, and Zola means that the damage is somewhat piling up now. See if Aku can pick up a cheaper option. Does this time.
Wow.
He does have a much more explosive turn available to him now.
What do you make of him going this heavy into draw? Like, do you even need this many cards now? Like, in hand?
I don't think it was like, it didn't play the Elven Minstrel necessarily to draw. I think he just played it because he wasn't going to use his mana elsewise. It wasn't just going to like play double shard deckhand necessarily.
I just thought about getting Zola down, for example.
But I think he understands that like with so many bouncers left in his deck, you saw the Panda get ripped there. With Zola in hand as well, he actually has a lot of charge damage, even with limited actual charges in his hand. So he doesn't want to necessarily expose those key cards to being taken off the board by swipe.
Yeah, when your minions are so powerful, it does feel weird to say, oh, I'm just going to draw more and more and more and more. And it's like, you're running out of mana. You know, like you can't not developing much this turn. But now he has the game-ending hand now. He just has to actually finish the job.
And it's a game-ending hand in a variety of ways as well, because you saw him just bounce the Giggling Inventor there. You know, we've been talking about ways to be aggressive and push for lethal this game. Aku might just be looking at it completely differently and say, hey, look at this hand. If I just play Giggling Inventors every turn for the rest of the game, does Token Druid ever bust through that?
Yeah, we saw off camera, someone asked Akumaker, promise me you will never die. And instantly, I will never die. And that's what he's going for this game. I'm glad you laughed and understood the reference.
Yeah. Woods will go for 7 here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, 6.
Yes, with the one in play, of course.
I do think he has to say I'm going to win this game in a minute. Because
In a minute, just wait 1 minute, all right?
give me 1 minute and I win this game. He has to do something. You even see now, like, he's going for attack. He's not even going for armor. He's going for double attack.
Oh yeah,
buffing everything and saying, right, you're vanishing or you're dead right now. Because I've already seen has he seen one fan of knives?
I'm not sure he even has.
Did he not use? Oh, okay. I thought that was his second.
He didn't use it on the Soul of the Forest turn, so
right.
Yeah, I imagine he didn't at all.
Oh, Shadow Step as well. Would you like some more cards, sir? Good defensive play as well. Can't really end the game right now, but with this kind of setup, it's like where you made 7 for attack minions or 6.
Drink with me, friend.
Yeah, I'll make 7. And mine have hell.
Yeah.
And mine freeze yours.
And mine freeze
And mine have Divine Shield and Taunt. It's like...
How could you not have that? I'm curious.
I didn't even look. I'm not going to lie to anyone.
He could have used Fan and Dagger to get through the 4-2, but that probably cost too much mana. So he had 4 on board and he needs to connect with 5 more from that point. Yeah, maybe not. Okay.
And that is just filthy. 40 minutes.
Ah, this is lethal. This is fine. The quad freeze is so smart in a variety of ways, though, because not only does he just build this enormous board state that Steelo can't deal with because of the freezes, it's also just massively neutralizes Spreading Plague. Because
guess what sucks now?
there's 4 bodies in play that just can't interact. So you get 3 1/5 taunts instead of the 7 that you would be getting otherwise. Fan of Knives punches through this nice and efficiently, leaving him with 16 in play, but nothing can be traded off the board right now. With Shadow Step and all of his bounces used, he can't pull them off.
Untrue.
I guess he can trade into a 4-1 and then generate more damage that way.
Yeah, he wants to trade 2 away and then be able to charge bounce charge.
Sure.
Well, I say charge bounce charge, it still would work because Zola doesn't bounce. It would give him an additional. Correct. So a little bit tricky, but trading off the board again. We said earlier, I think we've got a clear display here of Akumaker saying, "I'm just not going to lose because you can't kill me right now."
I just drew another Giggly Inventor. I'm fine this game.
Well, I do think Steelo now has his final push. He can make 4 Spreading Plagues, 1/5s, and then choose either Cenarius or the Soul of the Forest now, which raises a good question.
Yeah.
Go for Soul of the Forest, because this has the highest chance of him having something left on the board. Because although Floop is a fantastic card, that Cenarius is not a 5/8 that's in hand now, it's a 3/4.
Shadow Step number 2. 3 of Aku's last 7 cards here are Vanish, Vanish, Valera, which all 3 of those cards pretty much end the game on the spot the second he draws them from this position. Giggling Inventor doing the job just fine.
Shadow Step on the gigs.
Ryan Giggs.
I nearly made that joke last week, but I think it was when Admirable and TJ was with us on the desk, so I was like, yeah, they won't understand this reference at all.
Famous Annoyatron enthusiast, Ryan Giggs.
One of the all-time greats.
Yeah. I'm not allowed to acknowledge that, though. He played for the team.
It's true, though, isn't it?
He's alright.
That's as much as you're going to get out of a football fan. Or soccer hanging around in America.
There's nothing wrong with the word soccer.
In Korea, they call it soccer as well.
Well, we created that word.
Okay.
So I'd like this belligerence that British people have when another country calls it soccer instead of football is just idiotic.
We
it's
don't
our word.
Yeah, but we made it, so don't use it. Sorry. Use the one we told you can use. Football.
No one defends idiocy quite like you, Raven.
Yep. See, it's a gift. You wouldn't have these fun conversations without me, though. That's what you gotta remember.
So a reminder, 7 cards remaining in deck, 2 of them are Vanishes, which is just going to be a huge problem.
Well,
and
there's one.
Deckhand, Boars, Vanishes, Zolas, any combination he wants here. Akumaker
Him getting
with a
pumped.
pretty unfavored lineup, goes up to a 2-0 victory, but that was definitely one of the winnable matchups for his lineup. Like I said, since these Fan of Knives have come into the Quest Rogue deck, and since Quest Rogue is now just so resilient at staying alive.
The Walk Shaman. The only deck Akumaker has left to win is, of course, Conquest format, as HGT has been for quite a while now. But what do you make of this matchup? A little bit more difficult, I would say, for Aku here.
I think specifically in this matchup, yes, but I think if you'd have offered Aku this position going into the series, you've won with 2 of your decks and the remaining one that you have is Shudderwock Shaman, he would have bitten your hand off immediately. Like, this is all of his wildest dreams come true in terms of, you know, bringing a very, very greedy lineup into a very fast one. Shudderwock Shaman is the deck with probably the most tools in general for dealing with aggressive decks. Mind Control Techs, Lightning Storms, Volcanoes, massive healing with Healing Rain, and then Electra thrown on top of all of that to double those effects. And that card, Electra specifically, is perhaps more impactful in this matchup than any other.
Yeah, it has to be, right? Because one of the things that is very powerful for the Token Druid is that these AoE clears do not deal with Soul of the Forest very well.
Yeah.
Volcano does not keep going once it's cleared the board once. The Death Rattles don't proc as the damage happens, they proc at the end of the spell.
Absolutely.
So you're left with a board, and it's very often the 1-2 punch happens of setting up the Soul of the Forest, the Volcano clears the first half, or a Lightning Storm clears the first half, and then they're like, well, cross fingers, hope not to die. Whereas, as you said, Electra does cast 2 separate versions of the spell, so that gets over that hurdle of Soul of the Forest. But Akumaker gets something on the board first, which, with this version of the deck, isn't that uncommon, believe it or not.
Yeah.
The Token Druid is not that aggressive in the first, 4 or 5 turns of the game? Especially with no Violet Teachers anymore.
I wonder how important the 3-3
What
was versus
if?
just getting Kelly down as a 2-2. Because if you now draw Chain Gang on curve next turn, you're sad that you didn't play Kelliseth. Is the extra stat, or the extra, 1-1 of stats on board from the Ooze, like, really that impactful in this match?
Well, I think because you know it doesn't die, because you know there's no minions really, apart from a Power of the Wild Panther, which you actually see quite often on 2 from the Druid, it requires a Spellstone plus a hero power, which means no wild growth will be played to deal with it.
You're ever gonna bother to kill it, though,
It's
are
not,
they?
but it's always pushing more damage. It's always sticking around longer.
I guess it's now there's that one copy of Chain Gang in the deck from Steelo as well, where having the 3-3
That's
can
true,
actually be
that's
very
true, yeah.
relevant going into turn 4.
Is that playing anything funky? Is he?
Speak to me.
Nope. No Hermit. No Hermit.
No
double
lightning
MCT.
bolts, but I think lightning bolts have gone out of fashion for a while now. That Nourish with the Tyrant on curve does help this this issue of being behind on the board. The Tyrant's just really good gap filler, I would say, for these Druid decks.
Truth is found in
And now that ramps Steelo directly into his Woods Forest turn, and yeah, Aku with the delay on the Kelliseth does end up whiffing on that Chain Gang.
Difference between Woods and Forest.
Probably. I confess I don't
Guess.
know. Guess.
Tell me right now the difference between Woods and a Forest.
In Woods you can see the trees, but in Forest you can't see the forest for the trees.
I like it. I want to accept that answer as a success for yourself. That's 1 point.
Thanks.
Oh, there's the Volcano boom.
Engaging TC-130.
Double MCT is just absolutely
Oh,
nutty here.
Steelo's
Steelo, yeah, absolutely.
I'm not gonna lie, I'd be upset. And we were joking about this last weekend, but it was one of those jokes where we laugh, but then realize that it's not that funny, more of a serious point. Do you just play MC Tech in every deck right now? Because the card is very, very powerful.
Yeah, so in Giggling Inventor meta, basically one of 2 things happens. Like, your opponent plays a Giggling Inventor, then they just play 3 bodies in 1 card. There's a good chance you get to Mind Control Tech them. Or you play Giggling Inventor, they trade their stuff into your 1-2 Divine Shields, none of their stuff dies, they play more stuff alongside that, you Mind Control Tech them. So it feels like with Giggling Inventor in the format, no matter which side of the exchange you're on, MCTs just land very often.
Yeah, especially when you add a Fungomancer onto that list as well, because often Giggling Inventor into a Fungomancer is quite a powerful turn in itself. That does generate the total amount, and now Steelo has to just piece together a way to win this series, which I feel he was just born to not win. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I think Aku has played very well, actually, but I feel like Steelo was just not meant to win this series. I feel like a few things have really gone Aku's way.
The buff as well. Using his scenarios to really like take back the board, to stop the Shudderwock Shaman from running away with the board position.
He's playing around the third MC tech. Shudderwock.
I mean, yeah. Aku's just drawn a very board-heavy hand here, quite honestly. So he can just continue to stall for some time before he's ever pressured into using that Volcano, which is his first AoE so far.
And most importantly, once all the forest is gone.
Yeah. And you joked about third mind control techs, but there's mind control tech alive on board and a grumble in hand. This is no joke, Raven. I kind of like this, just you know, suctioning up all of his board position because he does have that Volcano in hand that he knows he can fall back on as a board clear. Yeah. He doesn't want to be doing that while he has his own minions in play.
And he's staying almost 1-for-1 on the board as well. You know, the 7-7 versus the 5-8, and then the two Treants just dealing with each other.
It's a very sad board against UI, though, which is, of course, the card that you're always scared of, right? Just leaving a 7-7 against a 2-2 with UI being a possible play. But the fact you've already dealt with one Whispering Woods Soul of the Forest.
With no AoE.
With no AoE, exactly.
No Electra, no nothing.
Just has to make you feel so good about your position.
You dealt with it with 2 MC2.
Right.
Oh, you made good sticky minions. Thank you. And the problem is as well, it's not as if... The thing that's probably frustrating for Steelo is you can't exactly play around it, right? Like, you can't play a token deck with only 3 minions on the board.
Seems unlikely, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, these 3 minions could just kill him next turn, which Akumaker probably has to Volcano now.
I wonder.
Yeah, maybe he can get away with Chain Gang. Oh no, he's gonna have Volcano. Probably doesn't want the minions to stay on the board for multiple turns.
Yeah. I think, you know, if you chain gang that turn, you almost certainly have to then AoE the next turn, right? So your chain gang hasn't really bought you anything.
So flip him.
Yeah, exactly. You've just thrown your chain gang out to the wolves, whereas if you AoE first, you might get your chain gang to achieve something afterwards. This is the turn now where Steelo has to find a big push, though. He really needs to punish this overload from Akumaker.
Huh. What do you think of spreading Chain Gang then instead?
Spreading plague for 2-1-5s and then chain gang alongside it.
Yeah, set up the strong shell into a Savage run.
I can see it, yeah.
Because, well, how many
Well, no, you know, it's because you know your opponent has mind control tech in hand, right? You only want to play 3 minions.
Okay.
I think that's the reason for it. I think Steelo is happy to play into mind control tech on a turn where he makes like 7 wisps, right? Because mind control tech on 1 wisp isn't going to be a big deal when you have 7 of them. Making exactly 4 minions feels like a recipe for disaster.
Okay. I'm just wondering whenever you're making 7 wisps this game.
Well, there's one card in your deck that does it for you.
Yeah, 1.
Let's see.
You're Druid. You draw a lot of cards. This is a nice board state for Aku to have developed here, though, because he has so many nice little breakpoints to set up that Hagatha for the following turn. So if Steelo doesn't land the second Soul of the Forest from Aku's position, he feels like he's in pretty good shape just with that Hagatha. I wonder if Steelo will look for that second Soul of the Forest.
Yeah, just draw for it.
Well, he has it in hand, just whether he like chooses to actually protect this board state.
Being blown.
Nope. Just gonna go digging.
What's he digging for at this point? Second Savage?
Yeah, Whispering Woods.
Okay, okay.
This must be to bump, right? Yeah.
Yeah. His plan is to clear this off, make him AoE, and then go right. You've got 1 mind control tech, 1 Volcano, and maybe 2 Lightning Storm.
Why, yeah, and Lightning Storm, and Electra, and Hagatha, and Shudderwock that has 3 mind control techs in it by the time.
So what you're saying is, next turn is my best chance to get Whispering Woods and Soul of the Forest off.
Yeah.
I mean, still 13 cards in the deck. It's, you know, it's as likely as it's ever going to get, right? With the series on the line, Steelo needs to do something to make this work.
Are you a press your totem and have it blown up for no reason guy, or a don't bother to press your totem guy?
It depends who I'm against. First versus you, I'd definitely press the totem. You probably annoyed me at some point, but general person, no. Depends on how many times that person's emoted me already in this game, I think. definitely a bit admirable. I know it would annoy him.
Aku's going to go fishing here. He's just going to go looking for Electra, looking for a second Storm. Doesn't find it. Goes fishing with the Mind Control tech. He can now go fishing with Glacial Shard as well for the second Lightning Storm.
And he may as well, right? Because he still has Hex. Ah, he probably wants to do a Hex. Just do a Hex. Oh,
Whoa.
hold.
Whoa!
Hold on a minute.
Hold the dog and bone, Raven.
Gladly, because this turn is a bit nutty. Ooh. Okay. Okay.
Now
Saying okay.
just two 2/2s on the board. Aku rocking around in his seat.
Steelo grimacing right now.
That is both Soul of the Forest now down, but Aku is still staring at a hand that just really can't resist another big board being built here because he had to throw everything into that huge clear. He's overloaded to the point where a Shudderwock top deck isn't playable in the immediacy, so Steelo, if he can threaten lethal again the following turn, throw 30 damage.
What if he trade, Spreading Plague Swipe, face? You make 3 1/5s.
So trade into the 3/3, trade into the 4/3?
Yes.
Yeah.
Leave a 2/2 on the board versus 3 1/5s, and you've done 4 damage to face, which sounds random, but in this deck, that just gives you ever more closer to just killing your opponent with a buff. He's got low cards in deck, which means he's likely to draw Savage Draw soon. Second Savage Draw. I don't know. He has double swipes. If you branch him past Savage Draws now,
I kind of like your play.
so what if he branch him past twice, pushes 8? No, because the healing rain. You have to set up an OTK. You have to just kill him.
Yeah, you have to have 30 damage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to. This double Savage, but this board feels way weaker.
And now with a combination of Hex and Shock, we can take the majority of damage off the board.
Sorry, what was the burn? I missed it.
Not sure. I think you burned more than one card.
It wasn't Malfury. Oh, no, wait, it will be. It's a big deal as well, because Malfury plus 3 damage is huge. It just beats healing.
I have no cards left.
Oh, he burnt both Giggling Inventors. So 2 sticky minions as well. That was... I don't think he needed to do it.
I did like your play, the Spreading Plague swipes out.
Because he's still on 17, right? Because he did the 4 damage with the 2 tokens.
Yeah.
Should still be on 17, apart from you're likely to have what? 2 1/5s? Say he clears 1 somehow with a 2/2?
I mean, the issue is that it doesn't set up for that 30 that we were talking about, and you didn't have the second Savage Draw in hand at that point, even for the triple buff. So it's a little bit scary, but it does seem like the best chance you have of like building an oppressive board state, right? The punishes.
And also as well, so, but if he healing rains, he's scared of 2 1/5s.
Yeah.
Cool. Like, you still got Malfury, and you still got the Giggling Inventors, these armies in a box, so, so to speak. Like, I don't know. I thought, like, even threatening was enough.
Loop as a 3/4.
Nice.
Brilliant.
Well,
0 minions left, so it's always a 3/4.
The Giggling Inventors are gone, like we mentioned, and now the healing rains have to come down. This draw's going to be huge.
Farsight, I believe, yep.
This draw's going to be huge. Shoulda. Okay, right, there are my lines now.
Healing Rain will take him back up to 28 here. So double Raw at 6, 12, 15, so yeah, he's safe. Good read from Aku, or good evaluation from Aku, I should say.
Is this just Spreading Plague? Spreading Plague, swipe face. If he healing rains, okay, he's healing rain for 10. Well, how much will it be? If he hits as well.
How about...
I think you have to deal with the 5/5 this turn though, right? You can't have that 5/5 like chewing away at your board state. You need to make a board and just have it stick for multiple turns now to win the game.
But you're not making a board if you deal with it, right?
I guess that's true.
Because the Spellstone is on 4. So he could just not swipe and Spellstone Hero Power it instead.
Yeah.
Reasonable.
Yeah, that seems right.
Yeah. I didn't actually realize the Spellstone was on 4, no, 2. I actually just don't, honestly, don't remember when he gained the armor for that. Oh, the UI.
Lots of UIs.
It's the UI.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Oh, Hex off the top is huge.
Oh, okay.
Taking his forward state down to 1 minion again. And now Steelo is just running out of ways to develop here. He has one more Spreading Plague that he can just play as a 1/5.
The UI burning so many cards.
Yep.
Double Giggling Inventor.
Yep. He just lost so many.
He effectively lost 3 Giggling Inventors for the flute.
Yeah.
Well, 4 Malfurion.
Yeah, true.
And damage from Malfurion, 3 a turn.
Right.
Because Steelo's health does not matter in this game. So you never even armor up. You just hit 3 to the face every time you've got the mana.
Oh, Aku.
Look, you can't even believe it.
Aku understands he is currently high rolling, but sometimes you just have to take those as a Hearthstone player.
Okay.
Aku will tell you in great detail all the tournament stories where he low rolled. So if those are going to be the case, then you are entitled to get lucky every now and again. But he is played very well to back